Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, tension mounts in Harrisburg with the ongoing state budget battle. Healthcare cuts loom. Taxes are on the table. Pennsylvania politics in depth and in detail. And guess what? It all starts right now.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, joining me as often is the case is Dr. Stuart Shapiro. He's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association. All right, doctor, look, let me just state this broadly. The healthcare piece of this overall budget battle, $29 billion the governor has recommended. Some House and senators say $27.5. We don't need to get into that kind of detail yet, but the healthcare piece of this is huge.
Healthcare piece is huge. The Medicaid piece is huge. And Harrisburg, is, as often happens in June, is transfixed on the budget.
Yeah.
Whether even the media is now finally transfixed. We
all focus on it, but again, it's the biggest game in town.
But the details are really serious.
Yes, they are.
And every year, the last 6 or 7 years, the budget's been late. Hopefully this year it can get done relatively on time, and that the safety net for the poor and the elderly will be preserved. But there are some real challenges.
Okay, well, let's talk about those. First of all, in order to balance the budget, everyone is counting on or believes that it is essential that the federal government weigh in with $850 million for, at a minimum now, we're just talking about that piece, to assist in Medicaid, in the Medicaid payments.
It goes beyond that. This is really, we often talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
Right.
That's $850 million gorilla this year.
Big gorilla.
Big gorilla. I hope it's going to pass, because it's not just for Medicaid. Those dollars come in and they support the revenue for the entire budget. And
that's a good point.
And it's really critical, because it goes not just to poor people and not just to health care, but it goes across the board and helps preserve the infrastructure of the budget.
All right, now for our viewers, in order to get this $850 million, Congress has to do something. What's going on in Congress?
There's a debate in Washington now, and a very serious debate because it concerns the deficit.
Correct.
Of whether they're going to continue with the stimulus funds, which were set to expire this coming December 30th. And all the states are asking, and there's 40 states now that are lobbying together, is that we don't have a double-dip recession. And the economists are arguing that unless the FMAP is extended,
that's this
for 6 months.
The Medicaid money.
Correct. But again, that goes into the overall budget.
Go ahead.
Is extended for 6 months to June 30th, 2011.
And that's something like $24 billion nationally, of which Pennsylvania would get
$850 million.
Okay.
Now, the problem is that everybody thought this was going to pass. And then all of a sudden, people are saying, let's find pay-fors. Let's find a way so that it doesn't increase the deficit. Well, I'm a deficit hawk. But I got to tell you, you can't enforce that now without setting up a transition period. And that's why it's so important to extend it until June of next year. Pennsylvania's budget needs it, and so do those across the country. Now, Governor Rendell has been tirelessly advocating this extension. I mean, he's been in Washington. He's been working the phones. He's been great on this. But there's real resistance. And some of the resistance, in fact, comes from Pennsylvania lawmakers. So I hope your viewers in Erie will be suggesting to Representative Dahlkamper that she ought to vote for this when it comes into the House.
And the resistance comes because of the deficit and the concerns that some members of Congress have. They're running in tough re-election battles. They don't want to add to the deficit. Is that primarily what the political issue is?
That is the issue, but it's almost a little bit phony, because it's all one big budget at the federal level. And certainly it has to be addressed, but it needs to be addressed over time, because the implications are so great. I mean, if Pennsylvania doesn't get that $850 million, it's going to require a real alignment.
The governor submitted a $29 billion budget to the legislature in February. There's been some resistance to that amount of spending, but here's the point for you. Without that $850 million, that creates a bigger hole that's either going to require cuts in the programs, which in the next segment I want you to talk about, and or some kind of augmented taxes or fees of some kind to make up for the $850 million, or just cut the budget by $850 million.
When you and I were here 3 or 4 months ago, we said there'd be a budget deficit of $700 million.
Oh, yeah, now.
That is now at $1.2, $1.3 billion.
May even be higher according to some estimates.
But when you add that $850 million to it, you're at over $2 billion. And it will require a massive realignment of spending. And it will really hurt people, whether it's the frail elderly, whether it's state workers, whether it's teachers, whether it's policemen. So that $850 million is absolutely critical, especially in a state when no one has an appetite for an increase in broad-based taxes.
Well, there's certainly not going to be any broad-based taxes. In the next when John Callahan comes on from the chamber, I'm going to ask him about the other taxes that he can update us on. All right, we're going to run to break. When we come back, I want to talk with you about what you think the impact of this will be for a lot of Pennsylvanians if this $850 million is lost. And as we speak, it's still somewhat in doubt. I mean, this week, as this show is taped, Congress the Senate is still debating what to do about this, correct?
Correct.
All right, when we come back, we're going to continue this important conversation. As I said, tension mounts in Harrisburg. The budget deadline, June 30. Some think the legislature cannot meet it. Some are a little more optimistic. As someone once said, here we go again. Back in a moment.